My name is Clara Jensen, I'm 36, and that morning I discovered my name was missing from the will that was supposed to secure my share of my grandfather's estate. If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. The smell of burnt coffee clung to the air of my kitchen, sharp and bitter. Sunlight cut across the marble counter in a pale rectangle. My phone vibrated against a chipped ceramic mug, the one I'd bought at a flea market in Portland years ago, and the subject line glared at me. Revised estate plan effective July 14, 2025. I had been expecting routine paperwork, maybe updates about tax distributions. Instead, scrolling through the PDF, my chest tightened. My cousin was listed as sole inheritor of the lake house and the trust fund tied to it. My name wasn't there. Not even a token percentage. Just absence. The house wasn't only bricks and timber. It was 2,400 square feet of cedar and glass, perched on Lake Superior's rocky edge, the last place my grandfather taught me how to fish at dawn, hands smelling of cold water and engine oil. That property was memory, not money. I read the document twice, then a third time, each page dry with legal phrasing, yet each line pulsed with betrayal. It was signed and notarized in June, just 6 weeks ago. But my grandfather had been in hospital then, his handwriting shaky even on birthday cards. How could he have authorized this? My hand trembled as I set the phone down. The screen smeared with a fingerprint. The clock on the oven blinked 7:43 a.m. I leaned back against the counter, heart racing, the tile cool under my bare feet. I didn't know yet that in 11 days, I would be standing in a courthouse with proof in my hand strong enough to turn the entire family narrative upside down. The living room that evening felt too neat, as if order could mask the fracture. A gray sofa I'd bought secondhand, stacked books on the coffee table, one lamp buzzing faintly in the corner. I had printed the estate document, 22 pages clipped together, and laid it flat beside a glass of tap water that had already gone warm. I called my mother. The line rang 4 times before she picked up. Her voice was brisk. "Clara, I'm in the middle of something. Make it quick." I tried. "Mom, I just got the revised estate plan. My name is gone. The lake house, everything. It's all reassigned to him. Did you know?" Silence, then a faint exhale. "Your grandfather wanted stability. Your cousin is married, has children, he can manage the place. You've always been busy with work." The words landed sharp. Manage the place. As if years of visiting, repairing broken shutters, shoveling the driveway each winter, never counted. I glanced at the page again, noting the date, June 3, 2025. I had been with my grandfather at St. Mary's Hospital that very day, reading him the newspaper headlines because his eyesight blurred after the stroke. He'd nodded, chuckled at the political scandals, asked for another ginger ale. He had barely been able to hold a pen. Busy with work. I repeated. My voice didn't rise, but it hardened. He could barely sign his name in June. How could he rewrite a will? "Don't dramatize, Clara. Lawyers handle these things. Your grandfather was lucid." I looked down at the pages, at the notary stamp slightly smudged, the ink bleeding as though rushed. Lucid didn't look like that. The water glass felt heavy when I lifted it. I set it down without drinking. My mother spoke again, softer now. "Don't stir things up. It's done." But I heard the tremor under her tone, like a thread pulled too tight. I ended the call without goodbye. The estate plan lay between my palms, paper rough, corners already curling. And in that small, cluttered room, something steadied inside me. "I won't do this anymore," I whispered into the quiet. The lake house wasn't about money. It was about memory, about being erased while still breathing. An erasure I decided could be contested. The pattern had been set long before that PDF landed in my inbox. When I was 10, summers at the lake house meant mosquito bites and the creak of the wooden dock under bare feet. My grandfather kept a rust-red tackle box with tangled lures and smelled of pipe smoke. My cousin always arrived last, loud and celebrated, while I was already there, helping stack firewood, sweeping sand off the porch steps. No one noticed the sweeping, only the grand arrival. At 17, after my parents' divorce, the lake house was my refuge. I spent a week alone with my grandfather repairing the roof shingles. I remember the asphalt grit under my nails, the way he patted my shoulder and said, "You keep things steady, Clara. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. My cousin visited only for the 4th of July fireworks, showing up in a convertible, stereo blasting. Still, he was called the future of the family. By my late 20s, the dynamics had calcified. I was the one who stayed after Thanksgiving to scrub dishes. He was the one who offered a toast. I earned my MBA, built a career in project finance, rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Minneapolis. He posted vacation photos from Barcelona and Miami, half of them tagged #FamilyLegacy. It wasn't resentment that grew in me, but something quieter. The knowledge that contribution didn't guarantee recognition. The lake house was supposed to be the counterweight. My grandfather had told me once, leaning back in the wicker chair on the porch, "This place belongs to both of you. Equal. It's written down." I believed him. I built my adult life on that promise. That memory would matter as much as showmanship. And now, with my name struck out, the weight of that broken promise pressed heavy. What was at stake wasn't only cedar walls and lakefront acreage. It was the proof that I had been there, always there, holding things together when no one else cared to. The document on my coffee table wasn't just a legal form. It was a declaration that I didn't exist. I closed my eyes, hearing the faint buzz of the lamp again, that nervous electric hum. I thought of the date, June 3rd, circled it in pen, and wrote one word in the margin, impossible. Because if he hadn't signed it, then someone had signed for him. And if someone had done that, there would be evidence. The first crack appeared 3 nights later. I had gone to the office late, a glass-walled floor on Marquette Avenue where the HVAC hummed louder after dark. My heels echoed on the polished concrete. I wasn't there for work, I was there for the printer. I needed the estate plan in physical form spread out page by page. When the last sheet slid out, I noticed something that hadn't registered before. The notarization page. The ink on the signature line was faint, the loops uneven. But it wasn't just that. The date typed beneath the notary stamp read June 3rd, 2025, 4:15 p.m. My chest tightened. At that exact time, I had been in my grandfather's hospital room. I checked my phone calendar. 4:07 p.m. was when I'd ordered his ginger ale from the cafeteria app. At 4:16, I had taken a photo of him smiling weakly at a headline. He had never left the room. Not that day. Not with 4 lines taped to his wrist. I ran my thumb over the page. The notary's name was there, in small serif font, de Havelock. I typed it into the state's online directory. One result. A paralegal registered at a law office downtown. The realization pulsed hot under my skin. Someone had taken my grandfather's ID, maybe even a shaky copy of his signature, and signed in his stead. I pulled my phone from my bag, scrolled through my photos, found the one from June 3rd at 4:16 p.m. My grandfather's face, pale but alert, oxygen tube at his nose, TV remote in his hand. The timestamp glowed at the top. That alone wasn't enough. I needed more than a contradiction. I needed confirmation. I printed the photo, held it in my hand. The paper warm, edges sharp. For the first time since reading that will, I felt something shift, not anger, not grief, but clarity. I whispered into the empty office. I make a choice. And the choice was this. I would not let them bury me with a forged pen. Saturday morning carried the smell of rain-soaked asphalt through my apartment windows. I sat at the dining table. Oak veneer bought flat pack years ago, spreading papers across its scratched surface. The estate plan, the notarization, the photo of my grandfather in his hospital bed. I needed someone who wouldn't coddle me with let-it-go advice. So I called an old contact, a retired accountant who had once handled small trust audits. He answered on the second ring, voice rough from morning coffee. "Bring what you've got," he said. "No promises, but I'll tell you straight." His office smelled of dust and toner. A single fan spun lazily overhead, pushing warm air around. I slid the pages across his desk, the photo on top. He leaned forward, glasses halfway down his nose. He didn't say much at first, just tapped a pen against the notarization line. Then he pulled a yellow legal pad closer and wrote down numbers. "See this?" He pointed at the insurance clause buried on page 17. Coverage had to be renewed by May 30th. It wasn't. Lapse policy. That triggers a review. "And the taxes?" I asked. He rifled through the printout, then pulled up a database on his desktop monitor. The screen glowed pale blue. County filing shows delinquency notice June 12. They're 30 days late. That's breach of fiduciary duty under the trust. I gripped the edge of the chair. My name might have been erased, but the law had its own memory. He pushed the papers back toward me. If you contest, you've got two solid angles: the signature timing and the lapsed obligations. Deadlines matter. Judges care about dates more than feelings. Is it enough? He shrugged, honest. It's enough to scare them. With counsel, maybe enough to win. But you'll need more than suspicion. You'll need to show deliberate exclusion. I slid the photo into my folder, the timestamp bold. I thought of the cousin with his showboat speeches, my mother's tight smile on the phone. Deliberate exclusion wasn't hidden. It was habit. The fan hummed above us. On the legal pad he'd written a date in block numbers, July 28, 2025. That's your filing window if you want an injunction. Miss it, and the house could be sold before you set foot in court. The number burned into me. 19 days. I thanked him, shook his hand, and stepped back into the humid air outside. The rain had stopped, but the sidewalk still gleamed slick as glass. For the first time in weeks, the world felt sharp-edged and navigable. And I knew exactly where to go next. The law office downtown smelled of leather and copy toner, sharp enough to sting the back of my throat. I had booked a consultation, 1 hour at $350, a number I repeated in my head like a drumbeat as I rode the elevator up to the 12th floor. The lawyer, a woman in her 40s with short hair and a blazer the color of slate, didn't waste time. She scanned the estate plan, the notarization, the hospital photo. Her pen clicked 3 times before she looked up. "This isn't sloppy paperwork," she said flatly. "It's tactical. They assumed you wouldn't check the filings." I told her about the lapsed insurance, the unpaid taxes. She nodded once, already scribbling. "Here's what we'll do. Temporary injunction. We freeze any transfer or sale of the lake house until the court can review intent and compliance. You'll need to post a small bond, maybe $1,000, but that's pennies compared to the property's value." Her tone was calm, procedural, but my pulse hammered in my wrist. How long until it takes effect? If we file today, judge could sign by Wednesday. She leaned back, eyes steady. They won't see it coming. The printer whirred in the corner. She slid forms toward me, tabs marked with neon flags. Sign here, here, and initial here. The paper was thick, almost velvety. My pen scratched across it. Each stroke steadied me further. At the end, she gathered the folder. "Once this is stamped, any attempt to sell or alter the deed is illegal. Sheriff will enforce if necessary." The words landed like steel. Sheriff. Enforce. My cousin's swagger, my mother's dismissive tone. All of it would crash against this paper shield. When I stepped back onto the street, the air felt different, sharper, as if the city itself had tilted in my favor. I walked 3 blocks to a cafe, ordered an espresso, and watched the steam curl upward in tight spirals. At 3:42 p.m., my phone buzzed with an email. Petition for injunction filed. Case number 27IF2984. I reread the line until the numbers blurred. And somewhere across town I knew, the silence of my mother's phone or my cousin's inbox was about to be broken by the one thing they hadn't expected. My name on official paper. By nightfall they would know. The first ripple came less than 24 hours later. I was slicing into a peach at my kitchen counter when my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. I answered. A man's voice, official but clipped. "Ms. Jensen? This is Deputy Clerk from Hennepin County. We've served notice of injunction on all listed parties. You may expect contact." Contact, it turned out, meant chaos. By evening my mother called. Her tone caught between outrage and disbelief. "Clara, how could you drag the family name through the courts? Do you know what this looks like?" I looked at the peach half still resting on the cutting board. Juice pooling like amber. "It looks like what it is," I said. "Fraud." Silence stretched. Then, "You don't understand the sacrifices we've made." I cut her off steady. "No, I understand perfectly. I'm done subsidizing lies." The line went dead. 2 days later my cousin appeared in my inbox, subject line. "This isn't you." The body of the email. "You've always been difficult. You won't win. Let it go before you embarrass yourself further. I printed it, slid the page into a folder. Evidence wasn't always hidden. Sometimes it came gift-wrapped in arrogance. At work, whispers followed me through the glass corridors. Word had spread. Family suing family, assets frozen. A coworker stopped me near the elevator's eyebrow raised. Rough week. I answered with the truth. No rougher than being erased. Then I pressed the elevator button and let the doors close between us. Practical shifts happened quickly. A for sale sign that had been planted at the lake house was yanked out of the soil. Listings disappeared from the online realtor sites. My lawyer forwarded a terse message from their side. We request mediation. I declined. The injunction wasn't just paperwork. It was a lever that shifted weight onto them. They had to explain to each other why the taxes were unpaid, why insurance had lapsed, why I suddenly stood between them and the house they assumed was already theirs. That Friday night I drove to the lake, parked across the road from the property. The porch light was off, curtains drawn. The house stood silent, its cedar walls dark against the starlight. I rolled down the window, inhaled the smell of pine and cold water, and said aloud into the night, "This place remembers me." A small win. Not the end, but the beginning of balance. The truth has a way of surfacing in fragments. Mine came in an envelope slid under my apartment door. It was a thin manila sleeve, no return address, the corner damp from rain. Inside, 3 printed emails. The font was unmistakable. My mother's serif signature block, my cousin's sloppy lowercase replies. One line stood out, bolded in the thread. "Don't worry about Clara. She'll never contest. She's too busy proving herself in the city. Just keep her off the paperwork." The timestamp read May 27, 2025, 11:06 a.m. 6 days before the notarized signature. Deliberate exclusion. In their own words, I sat on the edge of my couch, envelope limp in my lap. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was slow, deliberate. The apartment clock ticked each second into place. That night, almost predictably, they tried a countermove. My cousin called. His voice was smooth, practiced, but I could hear the tremor. "Look, Clara, this has gone far enough. We'll make it right, cut you in for 10%. Cash. No need for lawyers." I pictured him rehearsing that line, believing I'd grab at the offer like a lifeline. 10% of what should have been 50. I exhaled evenly. I don't want cash. I want truth. He laughed, brittle. Truth doesn't hold up in court. Paper does. I reached across the couch, touched the envelope. "Then you should worry. I have both." The silence on the line stretched long enough for me to hear the faint hum of his kitchen refrigerator. Then he hung up. I leaned back, letting the quiet settle. For the first time, I felt the terrain level beneath me. There was no way back, not for them, not for me. The lake house wasn't just contested property anymore. It was a record. A line drawn where erasure used to be. And in 3 days the judge would see the envelope too. The courthouse smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and paper dust. I wore a simple navy dress, flats instead of heels. No entourage, no dramatics, just a folder tucked under my arm. Inside, the notarized plan, the hospital photo, the email printouts, the offer of 10% folded like a cheap bribe. The hearing was brief. The judge flipped through exhibits, his glasses slipping down his nose. My cousin sat stiff in his tailored jacket, my mother beside him, pearls at her throat. They didn't look at me. When the judge spoke, it was steady, almost bored. Petition to revoke injunction denied. Evidence indicates deliberate exclusion and breach of fiduciary duty. The trust remains frozen pending reassignment. The gavel hit wood. Case closed. I gathered my papers without haste. As I rose, I heard my mother whisper just once, "Clara, why are you doing this?" I didn't answer. Not out of cruelty, just completion. Some questions are meant to echo. Outside, the air was bright, late morning sun warming the courthouse steps. Reporters hovered, microphones angled, but I walked past them. I had nothing to add. The documents had spoken louder than I ever could. 3 weeks later, I drove back to the lake house alone. The cedar walls smelled of damp wood and memory. Dust motes floated in the angled light. I opened the windows, let the breeze carry through. No champagne, no theatrics. Just me and the slow rhythm of the waves against rock. On the porch table, I set down a single object. My grandfather's pocket knife, the one he'd let me use when I was 9 to carve initials into driftwood. The metal was dulled, the handle smooth from years of use. This was the boundary now. I wasn't here to host reunions or chase anyone's approval. I was here because I chose it. For the next 6 months, I'll come up on weekends, repair the shutters, replace the solar lantern with something solid. I'll bring a stack of books, maybe paint the upstairs bedroom. No deadlines, no audience. The lake doesn't ask for explanations. It only reflects what's steady enough to remain. And I remain.